I believe that most people are afraid to put a flag in the ground and stand for something, not because they don't have personable beliefs, but because they're afraid that it's going to turn people off. They're afraid they'll lose sales or lose followers. Welcome to the Richer Retailer Podcast, and we are asking tough questions today. Do politics and retail belong together? The answer is yes. I'm so thrilled to introduce you to two of my clients, Janet from String Theory. So hello, Janet. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. And I'd like to introduce you to Cadence Kidwell from Thomasville, Georgia, and her store is Fuzzy Goat. Hello, Cadence. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Cathy. I always love a time I can talk to you and Janet at the same time.
It is. It's like bonus for us. You guys are just listening in on Coffee Chat, which is kind of what this is. Because you see, what's happened is that the world has changed. Perhaps you noticed. There's a lot going on. Perhaps you noticed that too. And people are just angry and they're sad. It just can be tough for people these days. And so what happened is that I'd been hearing from a lot of clients about how their customers were talking about boycotting Meta because of all this stuff that's going on and how they were so unhappy. And actually, Cadence, it started with you and your amazing, the email that you sent out. I'd love for you to tell us about that. Like what sparked your email? And you guys will put a link to their emails in the show notes so you can see those too. But tell us, Kate, what sort of started this journey for you?
Well, I was seeing people that I admire leaving Meta and thinking, what am I going to do? I don't know what the answer is to that. And just really affecting my ability to feel like we could move forward and what's the solution. And I knew where I personally stood, but I didn't know where I needed to stand as a business. And it's not often that those collide, but at that moment, it felt like it was. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. Then we got snowed in, which is a real odd thing for Thomasville, Georgia. It's a lot of time to think about this. And somebody commented on one of my Facebook ads. And I totally agree with this person. It's fine that she did this, but she said, I am no longer buying from Facebook advertisers. And I was like, shoot, what if all of my customers start feeling like that? What am I going to do? I feel like I've got to say something about, am I going? Am I staying? If I'm staying, why am I staying? So that was, and I thank her for making that comment. I mean, she was acting from her values and it spurred me to be clear about what mine were. And so I made a list, an actual list of why I'm there, why I'm on Meta, what happens if I were to leave Meta, and where that would leave our customers. So a lot of them don't have the wherewithal or technology to leave to go to another platform. And I didn't want to leave them out there on their own. So in some ways it's a statement, and in other ways I'll admit it's a big justification for why I'm still there and why I pay for advertising too, so.
I found so amazing about your email was that you did stand up. I mean, so many people would just shove it underneath their desk, right? And just not deal with it all. And you instead decided to approach it just very boldly. And I really appreciate that your heart about it came from standing up for all those people that you serve through what you sell, like all the vendors that you serve also, really. That's where it came from, huh?
Yeah, because a big part of that list was like, okay, so if I leave Meta and the ads, I mean, we had somebody in today, she found us because of the ads. So there's a lot of people who, she was from Texas and she was visiting, and we would definitely lose income. Okay, I could make some adjustments around that. I've had to do that before, but it's not just my income. And it's not just my wonderful team's income. It's all the makers that we support. It's the income that we donate and the dyers. And some of those orders are pretty big. I'm sure we're not the biggest orders that they get, but for some of them, I do believe it's a consequential part of their annual income. So that went into part of my reasoning for saying something. So it's also part of an education of like, this is not an easy decision for business owners to make, because we, as a person, we might make a stand, but we have a lot of other people counting on us now that if we packed up and left, who would serve them? I don't feel confident that I would make that same income on another platform at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And be able to impact all those people to be able to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had already started selling the Y'all Means All box, and I had written a blog post a year or so ago about what it means to be a shop owner and mom of a gay daughter. So I'd already put something out there about my values, but as a point of like, I want to protect her. So I feel like as long as I'm coming from that position of this is what matters to me and this is why it matters to me, we surely have some people like, I'm not interested in that. But others are like, okay, I can respect that. And we try to respect other people's views as well.
And Janet, your store actually started from a place of deep belief for you, didn't it?
Yeah, we've been sort of political from day one. The premise of the store is shopping your values, spending money on things that are important to you, and thus increasing those things. And so we've been in business 20 years, but the start of the store and kind of the start of my politicalness, that's a word, is in 2001 when my brother died on 9/11. And I realized how important politics did impact me personally. I mean, I'd always voted and kind of kept track and whatever, but I didn't really feel the personal impact of political decisions. And when they started sending bombs over with like my brother's name on the missile, that just made me sick. Not my reaction to the whole thing. And so I thought, okay, I had just been laid off from my job as well. And so I had a lot of time to think. So I decided to open a yarn store because I thought knitting is good for you. I discovered once again how good knitting is for you and healing and all sorts of things. And I thought, well, I could start a store and then I could fill it with products that are actually helping people all over the world. And so I could funnel money to these causes that are really important to me. And whether it's empowering women or organic farming or, there's just a long list. Beauty is one of my values. And so I just did a whole lot of research and continue to do a whole lot of research for all the products that we bring in to make sure that they align with our values. And we found that most of our customers appreciate this idea. And a lot of them will say, I don't know the stories behind all these yarns, but I trust Janet and where she's coming from. And so I know if I make a purchase here, I'm doing something good for the world. And it's important to me.
I believe that most people are afraid to put a flag in the ground and stand for something, not because they don't have personable beliefs, but because they're afraid that it's going to turn people off. They're afraid they'll lose sales or lose followers. And when you were talking about your Y'all Means All box, did I say that right, Cadence? I mean, that is very clearly, right. You put your flag in the ground about supporting your gay daughter. And what was the impact of that? How did people react?
We sold out in 12 hours. I mean, it was nuts. It really inspired me that people cared about finding a way to, like Janet says, they want to support this cause. And I will say, even customers that I know are on the other end of the political spectrum from me even bought the box because they wanted to support us and they wanted to support Carolina, my daughter. I mean, it is political, but it shouldn't be. We're just talking about supporting LGBTQ makers, and that this is why, because I want to make the world incrementally safer for her and her wife. And people reacted to that. And so we've sold it now 3 times. We've had 3 different iterations of it.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, and Janet, I know you've experienced backlash from customers. Wasn't there a sign you had in your window one time? I forget what it was or something. And a couple walked in off the street.
Yeah, we had a Black Lives Matter sign in our window, and it was summer and the door was open and we heard some people walking by, and I saw them look at the sign and then they were like, oh yeah, well now we know where not to shop. And I'm like, exactly. We believe you should shop your values. So if your values, if you don't believe Black Lives Matter, don't give me your money, because I will use it in ways that will not make you happy.
Agree with.
I've gotten a tougher skin. I remember the first time I did something political, and I was naive and didn't think it was political, but there was a group of women, I think Moms Against War, and they yarn bombed the fence in front of the White House. So it was before social media. And I thought, oh, it's yarn bombing. Isn't this an interesting way of, protesting or whatever? And I got all this mail back, like, who do you think you are? And, whatever. And I was like, you mean you're for war? Like, I was like, really? Really? I don't know anybody that's for war. But anyway, then I was like, oh my gosh, I really don't know what I'm doing, and I was silent for a long, long time, years. But Cathy, you've always encouraged me to go deeper into my story, talk to people about who we are and what we support and what we stand for. And I've gotten better. But I still, we sent out an email right after the inauguration and said, oh yeah, yesterday was a really tough day. And here's how we're dealing with it. We had one of our team members put together a blog post on what to cast on for Inauguration Day and all of that. And we got a bunch of people coming back at us and going, I'm here for the knitting, not the politics. And who do you think you are, offending half of your customers? We thought it was a great day. And I admit, I get a response, one negative response, and I might get 20 positive responses. But what do you remember? The one person that, Cathy, you would say is not your customer.
Right.
And I'm getting better, I think, at supporting our customers, going after the people that are really into what we do and really want to support us and taking care of them.
Well, what would you say to somebody who wants to be able to stand up for their values, but they're afraid, because... Right. Like you said, do you still feel afraid to press the enter button, the return button, and send that email?
Yep. Every time. And a lot of it, too, is, did I phrase this right? Does it say what I mean it to say? Have I offended somebody that I didn't want to offend? There's all these complicated feelings. But I feel like it's going into your niche. Like, you really want to be specific. You teach us not to try and get everybody to be your customer, to really go deep into who you are and what kind of yarn store I want to be and really go into deep into that. And that's what it is for me. That's who my people are.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel, Cadence, when you first posted that blog post?
Well, the great thing about a blog is I could go back and tweak it a little. The email was the shorter part and then the blog. So I was like, I will say over the next few days, I kind of changed a few words here and there. I got over 50 comments on the blog. I don't think I've ever had comments on any of our blogs. And the majority of them are like, oh, please don't go. I don't know where else, And then a few are like, I'm leaving, but I understand why you're staying. So there wasn't anything really negative about that. I'll say part of my process when doing stuff like that is I do think of a few of my very dear customers who likely don't see the world the same way I do. And I try to read through it and see, can they still find themselves in what I'm saying? Is there, or have I completely shut the door on them? So I try to read it through and make sure that I've left room for them to feel welcome in there as part of my process before I hit send.
Yeah, and I think a difference between Cadence's store and mine is that I'm in an area that I'm part of the Chicagoland area, and we have 20 stores, and we're right outside of Chicago in a traditionally, I suppose, Republican area, but pretty liberal at the moment. And so I feel like I have greater leeway to say things than I think if I were in Cadence's situation in Georgia in a small town, I'd feel differently about things. But Cadence is so good at words.
I came from where everything was about public service. And so I just can't really get that out. Yet I am just over the state line because that's where the really wonderful retail experience was. But yes, it's a rural conservative section where I had a hand hooked feminist pillow in my window, and my UPS driver asked me if that was illegal to have that in the window. I don't know if
So
he's
to your point,
joking or
Janet,
not, but anyway, it was
yeah.
So we try to
Well,
make
and it's
sure that there's
interesting too.
still room for people that think feminism might be illegal, because I don't have a chance at all of having them understand Carolina's worries if I don't welcome them in and find a way to welcome them in as well.
Yeah. Whereas I see more of I feel like I'm in a bubble and I worry about that too. Am I preaching to the choir? Is there an opportunity to, because I've so focused in on my niche, is there an opportunity to have conversations that, Cadence can have across differences? Or is my goal just to support, the people who are in my bubble, feel the same way I do about things?
Well, and it's interesting, Janet, to go into your story a little bit more. So we met last month and we were looking at everything, and you had just sort of felt down. Everything felt down. But then when we actually looked at everything, it was just 2 classes. And so we came up with a strategy to come against it. And it's amazing how the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I can see how when you do something that's scary at all, it's easy to say, oh my gosh, it did not work, or it had the effect that I was so worried it would have, which is that it turned people away. But that isn't the case. Like with either of you, it doesn't happen. It does not happen. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I really feel like if we can embolden one other retailer to stand up for what they believe in, because it makes you both so different from everybody else in your community. It makes you different from every other store, because people know that when $1 is spent with you, it's going to someplace. And the other thing is that even if they don't specifically agree with what it is that you're talking about, so like for you, Cadence, if it's the y'all box, okay, so maybe I don't buy the y'all box because that doesn't resonate with me. But then similar to Janet, there's Handspun Hope, where you have this amazing vendor that does so much good. And there's so many other ways that you can help other than just through. I think the point is that you can help, is that your purchase makes a difference. So I learned from Janet actually about having each dollar that you spend make a difference in the world. And that now it's so commonplace, but at the time that was a brand new idea in retail. People didn't do it. And I can remember talking to you then about it and about the importance of standing up for what you believe in. And the other thing is that it can be anything you want. So for example, I have another client who isn't willing to come down, or she believes that the greatest good she can do with her platform is by giving people resources. And so she filled her email with all these resources that people could go to get more information about what it is that matters to them. And that's also a fabulous way of standing out, because there are so many people that aren't saying anything at all. Actually, even in my world, in what I do, I'm so grateful that you guys were able to hop on here. I literally reached out to them yesterday, I think it was, or maybe it was Sunday night, that I texted both of you and asked if you could do this, because I want you to know that you should stand up for what you believe in. You've been given this platform, and it is your responsibility to use it for good, for whatever good it is you see, right? That's what I love about this. And the other thing we always teach is that, out of 10 customers that come to your website or come through your front door, out of those 10 customers, if you hold your hands out in front of you and wiggle all your fingers, it's 2 out of 10, your thumbs, that create 80% of your business. And those people love you madly. Haven't you all found that that's true, that you found more of your people by taking actions like this?
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like the people who come back at me saying they're offended or they're not going to shop anymore or whatever, usually never shopped in the first place. Don't think in the 20 years that we've ever lost a customer that I was a huge customer. Most people, when they say they're never coming again, I always look them up. And then I'm like, they're not even in the system. Look at that. But the people that your values, that what you say resonates with, those people are even more passionate about spending money. And those people, find you, gravitate towards you because of the stand that you're taking.
And they want to defend you too, I bet, Janet. too, like they want to defend you when they hear that other people feel differently.
And I think something else that's important to mention about this, I want to read this one paragraph of Janet's email that she just sent out, because when we were talking, I said, you know what you have to do now? You have to do something for your heart, for your people. Well, you tell them the story, Janet.
So we were trying to figure out, because I felt like my messages weren't resonating. I feel like for most of my emails that people respond and I've inspired them and they're going to make purchases. And it just seemed like everybody was sort of in this funk.
Just in recently, I want to make sure everyone understands. This is just like in the last couple of weeks, like just sort of.
Yeah.
Very
we just seemed to be in a shock and awe is what we were in. And so Cathy was saying, okay, what you need to do is do a plain text email. And I had heard of that. I've never done one. It's basically stripping away all the bells and whistles, the pictures, the graphics, whatever. So it looks like more like it's coming directly from your email. So I fashioned it that way. And basically, I just reached out to people and I said, one of our themes lately has been joy as an act of resistance. And so I spoke about joy and how I was overwhelmed with the news and how I was trying to balance my intake of the news with joy. One of the things that brings me joy is my customers. And so I gave them $14 off for Valentine's Day or Valentine's week to treat themselves. And I got, great sales from it, but I got at least 12 responses, personal, writing back to me responses, because I feel like when you do a plain text email, it really feels like it's coming to just you, because it doesn't feel like a newsletter. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like these people really felt the connection and the community. And so it was great to read those responses. I'm saving them so that I can read them when I'm wondering if we're doing anything. We're having an
impact. I call it an encouragement file. I have an encouragement file. Yes. Put things in there to read when I don't feel.
Yeah, those are going straight in there because very heartwarming.
Right.
And not from people, some regulars, some huge fans of ours, and some people that honestly didn't recognize the names.
Wow.
And they're like, you're having a huge impact.
Wow.
Thank you. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah. Well, and I love how, I just love so much being able to take this big theoretical idea about do politics and retail belong together? Like, what do you do in these times? Because, half of the people are happy, half of the people aren't happy. So what do you do? And what I love is being able to bring it down to actionable things you can do that will increase your impact and then therefore increase your sales. And that's a beautiful example of it. And that idea came from Josh Orr. I have to tell you guys, listen to last week's podcast, which is about increasing the lifetime value of your customers. It's a fabulous episode. And that was where that idea came from. And you took action on it. You did it, which is another thing I'll tell you all, that we are all so guilty of taking in education and not taking action on it. And that is a super simple, easy thing that she did that came from her heart to her people. But I want you all to listen to what Janet wrote. She said, I can feel my blood pressure lower as soon as the yarn starts sliding through my fingers. I feel less helpless, knowing that in buying the yarn, even before I create with it, supports causes that I believe in. But the best feeling is that spark of joy when I cast on something new. Joy is my act of rebellion, and I look for it every day. The thing that's so powerful about that, Janet, is that is so welcoming to everybody. It's not as if you're pushing away people that don't agree with you, right? I believe your platform is God-given to you. I believe that you've been blessed with this, but similar to you, I welcome everybody. Like I really do. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. That's what I think love is, really, at the end of the day. And love and joy, always go hand in hand. Cadence, you tell everybody what you created.
What I wanted was a reminder of me, because I was feeling that malaise of what's happening, what am I doing, why am I doing this? So I just really needed, and Cathy, you really bring home for us a lot, like your why. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. So my why kind of fell into three things. And so I put that on my screensaver on my phone every time I go in. And the first one is to create unity among divisiveness. So even though we might be divided, I believe there's still things we can be unified on. And that, like Janet's so good at articulating this, that knitting is about soothing and joy and resilience. And I added whimsy. It's just fun. And the last one that I have on here was money for good, makers and the team. So just to remind myself, when I'm feeling like this is hard, those are the reasons why I'm doing it. I think people need to know about knitting. I want to bring people together, and we want to generate money for the things, the causes that we donate to and the makers that we support, and in my great team.
At the end of every episode, I like to ask you, what is your Millie moment? To that moment when you knew you had achieved something special, that you knew had made a difference. What was it for each of you? Janet, you go ahead and go first.
Well, Cathy can tell you that I can barely remember what cool thing I did last week, much less in my whole career. So as I was thinking this through, I mean, there's bound to be lots of them, and I'm not even sure. But the most recent one that I was most excited about is every year we do a scarf market where our customers make scarves and we sell them, and they make scarves and donate them to us. And then we sell them and raise money for a local charity. And this last year, we run it between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And this last year, we raised $6,895, Young Equal, which is a local organization that has events, I guess, for LGBTQ plus teens and young adults. And it's just a great organization. And I was thrilled to be able to give them that check. And because it's a small organization, that made a huge difference to them. The impact was huge. And we run the scarf market every year. This might have been close to one of our biggest checks that we've been able to hand over. So that felt really good.
Congratulations. Let me share with you all one other great thing that Janet does, which is that she keeps track every month, or most every month, I'm sure she'd say, of what she has done the previous month, because we always forget what we have done. That's so true. And we're always just quick to focus on what didn't get done, like that one bad response, as opposed to all those beautiful responses that you're putting in your encouragement file. All right, McCadence, how about you? What was your Millie moment?
Mine's going to go more in the whimsy and the joy category for me this time, because I did about that. And it would have to be when we designed our own bag. And that was really fabulous. And because I knew the illustrator from Janet, I learned about Alana from Janet, and she designed something just for us. And then we found a nearby seamstress and a somewhat local fabric printer, and we sold over 200 of them. And that felt like a really big Millie moment. And the day we got our labels on there and all of that. Another close second that I could just mention for a second, which also falls in the definitely whimsy category, was when Matthew McConaughey interviewed us. That was kind of weird and fabulous.
At the same time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which also only came about because I used home base, which I learned by being at a mastermind intensive.
Oh, wow. Thanks so very much. Thank you so very much. Well, and listen, it is such an honor to help these women grow. I'm so passionate specifically about that, because what I know is that the more sales they do, the more people they impact. That's what I say all the time. Crossing that $1 million figure, crossing the $500,000 figure, it's not about money. It is. You have to be responsible about it. But it's about all the people that you're helping with what you're passionate about. And we help people of all, we don't only help yarn stores, we help all different kinds of stores have an impact in their community and make their community better. And I say all the time that I know your people don't thank you enough for what you do, but they are so grateful. Sometimes they're just waiting for you to change things up and reach out to them in a different way. Just like Cadence did, she was involved in the fabric. The pattern of the fabric was created and then printed, and then this bag was made. So look at all those women that she supported all along the way until she could sell her own bag. I mean, it's so powerful. And then you think of Janet and how she's able to continue to impact her community because of it. All the knitters. Honestly, I now knit because of them. And I too now feel that joy. That's what's so exciting about what you do and why it's so important that you are thriving, not just surviving. We have a free training I'll link below, and it tells you the right and the wrong way to do retail, because there is a wrong way. I know because I did it myself for a very long time before I turned it around. Or if you're ready to do this thing right now, then the link to join us and work with us is below. You get a chance to talk to Jeff, our sales coach, our sales maven, and it's really an incredible group of retailers of women, a couple men who are passionate about lifting each other up and making this world a better place in every way. In every way, you guys, in every way. Thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart, both Janet and Cadence. I'm so grateful that you were here today.
Thanks for having me.
It was fun to talk about it.
It was fun. Well, you know that you are astonishingly fabulous and you are loved. Happy retailing. Bye-bye, everybody.